YouTube channel. It's Dr. Stephanie, your life coach and physician. And today I just wanted to talk a little bit about forgive your sister. Just go ahead and forgive your sister. I did a series on I am my sister's keeper and she's a keeper. And one of the things that I talked about was forgiveness, but recently I had an experience that really brought it home. Because sometimes we don't realize that we have unforgiveness in our hearts, and that was me. It was my own experience with one of my sisters who I am very close to. And I kind of knew that I had set some boundaries along the way because, I needed to for my own peace and my own sanity. But I didn't really realize that I was carrying around unforgiveness until she called and she was in deep despair. And I showed up for her in that moment of deep despair. But what I noticed is that her despair didn't affect me as deeply as I would have thought it had. I had experienced connecting with other people who were not as close as I was to this particular sister. And I felt their pain much more deeply than I was feeling her pain in that moment. And when I just realized that intellectually I was all on board and I was there for her, I was ready to offer whatever support, but in my heart, I didn't feel it the way that I should feel it for somebody that I'm not close to. So I had to do a little bit of introspection and ask myself, well, why am I not feeling this so deeply? Because, we tell ourselves all types of stories. Well, you've just gotten really good at not being so empathic and being able to separate your feelings from other people's feelings and not absorbing it. You just have some really healthy boundaries. But I had to sit with that. And I realized that wasn't the truth. That the truth was I had been hurt by this particular sister so much that I had built an invisible shield around my heart. And that even this deep despair and pain had not penetrated that shield that I had built around my heart, which was there to protect me. It was not there to not be there for her in her moment of crisis and her moment of greatest need. It was really there to protect me. But what it was doing was separating us. So in addition to the things that had happened that may have caused separation, me not forgiving and trying to protect myself was causing separation. And I didn't even realize it. I wasn't even conscious of it. I just said to myself, well, the relationship has evolved over the years. It's changed. We're not as close as we used to be. All of those things that we tell ourselves, right? We tell ourselves things about relationships when we really have to look at that forgiveness piece. Because when I actually, got underneath all of those excuses, then I got to the place of realizing that I had never excused her for her limitations, right? Because her limitations had caused her to show up in our relationship in a way that was not very supportive of me at times, that was very hurtful to me. And my interpretation of her actions is probably the thing that was the most hurtful, right? Her not reaching out or taking the initiative to plan events or for us to spend time together, or even just to send a card or whatever it was, or her disappointing me time and time again. It really was my interpretation of those events that caused the most hurt, not necessarily the event itself. Because if I interpreted the event as if she was physically disabled and could not show up physically because of her disability, I'm sure that I wouldn't have felt as much pain. And sometimes people have emotional and mental disabilities that are just as disabling as a physical disability. And that's what I'm referring to as a limitation. So because of her limitations, she disappointed me and she hurt me and she didn't show up for me in the way that I needed her to. But once I was able to say, I love her no matter what, I love her despite her limitations, and I forgive all of those times that this happened or this didn't happen, I'm just going to release it and let it go. Then I was able to see that her emotional limitations were just as real for her as somebody else's physical limitations. And that her not being able to show up because of an emotional limitation is not any different from her not being able to show up for a physical limitation. Yes, it's still disappointing. Yes, it still hurts. But when I look at it that way, I don't assign the same motive. I don't assign the same hurt, the same betrayal to it as I did before, when I just looked at it as her not showing up for me in the way that I needed. So I just wanted to share that because that came to me and it was really an aha moment. And I bet there's others of us out here who, you know, relationships have changed with our sisters and we just think, well, it's the distance, it's the time. But we really haven't looked at that unforgiveness piece, and we really haven't looked at how we have the power and the ability to forgive even if the other person doesn't ask for forgiveness. And it releases something for us, and it heals something in us. So I just want to leave you with that. Forgive your sister. Think about one sister that you might need to forgive and just do the work. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.